This is the playground where the players play. And I am honored to have as a guest of mine Andrew Brown. He is the proprietor and owner and president and all that of Brown Sound Entertainment. And he's also the consummate musician, the drummer, hailing from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I got to tell you right from the beginning, me and this guy go way back. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you so much.
How you doing?
I'm good this morning. Got my coffee. I'm rocking and rolling, baby. I'm rocking and rolling.
So let me ask you, let's go back to the beginning,
Yes,
right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as like your career and what brought you here today and all that. And like I said, you know, you're from Grand Rapids, Michigan. What was life like in Grand Rapids coming up?
Wow. Interesting. I was actually born in Chicago.
Okay.
And I was raised
I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
Michigan. Yeah. I left, my parents left Chicago, and I think I might have been about 7 or 8 when leaving there, and then we came into Michigan, and we actually stayed in a rural area that was like South Haven, Covert, Michigan. This is before I went to Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is like second largest in Michigan. Detroit is number one. So where I first learned music, though, was interesting, was actually in the sticks. You know, when we were there, and believe it or not, I started out. You know how we had our curricular courses in school, where they say, okay, well, you can check out a horn or something. You know how you could take it home and you know stuff like that. Yeah,
I took them all when I was in school. I took the whole orchestra of instruments home. You know, I was going to find something in here.
And I experimented like that too, Eddie. I actually took home a clarinet first because nobody really wanted that, and I didn't like it. I wanted trumpet. You know, I wanted a trumpet. You know, or sax, because those you could check out and take them home and rehearse with them and stuff, bring them back. Everybody taking all instruments. So what was I left with was a drum, a snare drum. Okay.
What?
And you couldn't take that home. No, it was not my first choice.
Wow. Okay.
You know, because I actually come out of a family of minister musics. My grandmother and my father were organists. They were organists, plus they directed the choir and all that stuff like that. So
and just and not to interrupt you, but just for the audience, that's why it's such a surprise to me, because this guy is such a consummate drummer. I mean, when you hear him play, it'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't your first. I just assumed that was your first instrument.
No. And a matter of fact, Eddie, I was mad because I was like going.
And that was your revenge? I'm going to play drums.
Yeah. Everybody got all the good instruments. How come I get left with the drum I can't take home? You know, because I couldn't take it home. You know, and so I said, "Oh, forget it. I'll just start." So I started the rudiments and all that stuff like that. You know, and I ended up starting liking it. You know what I mean? But I wanted to do like what I saw my grandmother and my dad do. You know, they had them organs around, and of course they had pianos. But the organ was like, at that time, it was the new thing. And it's like the original synthesizer. When you think about a Hammond organ, the way it's made with the pulling of the drawbars, you're creating a sound. You know what I mean? So I was like,
you're talking about this. Now you had like the Farfisa organs and all that stuff. Is that what you're talking about? Because the B3s, I mean, they were so massive. I mean, they stayed in one place.
That's what I'm saying.
You had one?
My dad and my grandmother always had a Hammond in the house. So in the living room, I mean, it's a piece of furniture. It's a piece of furniture, man. You know, you know, we'd be in the living room looking at TV, but then my dad want to play and stuff and entertain us and stuff, and he learning a new song for church or whatever he doing. And he's sitting up there, and he would listen to Jimmy Smith and Earl Grant and all stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? He'd listen to that. And so I would sit there as a kid, and I would listen to the organ. I'm listening to all the sounds that it's doing. You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
And so that's where it got me into that sound of a Hammond.
Right. You know? And there were like those percussive things that you could do on the Hammond as well.
So I started working on them too. But you know what I mean? I used to repair them for churches and everything else.
Whoa.
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
No. That's okay. You repaired the organs for the churches?
Yes. Matter of fact, all the churches that I worked for, okay, and that includes the ones in Michigan and out in Los Angeles and everything else.
Right.
Anytime something was going wrong with the Hammond, they'd ask me first before they call the guy in.
Wow.
Okay? Wow. Because I could open up the back. I can open up the back of a Hammond. It has a tone generators. It has these things that make it keep 440 all the time. And you have to oil it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and an organ could stay going 24/7.
Right.
We had some churches in Michigan, like one in Greater Grace and what's his name's church, Aretha Franklin's dad's church. Stuff like those organs stayed on like almost 24/7.
Wow.
Never turned off.
Wow. And now the Leslies, are they going as well? The big
Leslies can go too. Yeah. But the main thing is, how you got that double switch to throw on that Hammond.
Right.
You know what I mean? One of those switches is turning on the tone generators.
Okay.
And that's taking that 440.
Okay.
So, and all that stuff, man. When I learned what 440 was and 432, 432 was done before 440. You know what I'm talking about,
right.
That was the original tuning and stuff. And I'm like, well, where did 440 come from? You know what I mean? It's like, whoop, you changed that. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't like you, because I mean, you're very trained, musician and stuff like that. And where I got trained was in drumming, because when I got into drums, then I learned how to read music, reading all the drum charts. Plus I played timpanis and, like xylophone a little bit. I was kind of, getting into all of the percussionist stuff.
Right.
Then when I learned that a piano is a percussive instrument, and I said, wow.
Wait. Where's my sticks?
Yeah, where's my stick to beat on that? I said, how are you making that a percussionist? And we'll think of the hammers. I was like, okay.
Right.
So that's how I really got into drumming and did it formally. Did it formally, of course. Like yourself. And but I never got into learning all my notes, chord wise and things like that, which I really wish I would have done that better. Yeah. But I got taken into a different direction. Even with the drumming thing, that was my first love. Okay. But I was always attracted to sound. Just like when I was telling you, I would sit up and I would listen to the organ when my dad and my grandmother were playing, and I'm listening to the tones. You know what I mean? So I'm more into sounding, what the sound of an instrument is.
Now, do you remember what age you were when you knew that, hey, this is different. This is, something that I like. I like this.
Which one?
When you were talking about, like, as far as like you really got into sound.
Sound. Oh, that was that early, probably 8.
That early?
Probably around 8.
Okay.
8, 9 years old. Because 8 is when I started really playing, drums. I started like working with the drums. And
wow, so you started all of that at about the same time.
Yeah, man. And it's like, because you know me for a long time, and I'm a hybrid of not just being a musician, but sound.
Right.
And it was like they were always running parallel. You know what I'm saying? Because when I was playing in bands, I was the one they'd say, okay, well, Drew, I'm sitting back on the drums. Drew, put the mixer back there with you and you run the sound while we're doing the show. And I can't even really hear what's out there that much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I'm listening to what was bouncing off the walls coming back at us. Because I was using the same type of concept of when it bounces off a wall and it comes back. And I guess if you do it so much, you kind of get a sound that's coming back at you. It's not in your face, you know what I mean? Because you're up on the stage. And it's the same thing with artists are performing, and they'll say, well, hey, you sure that's right, or blah, 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 because they're used to hearing what's bouncing off the wall coming back at them. They're not in front of the speakers. They're on stage.
Now, what's interesting about everything that you're saying is that this is the time when, and I'm sure you can relate, this is the time when we had to make up things. I mean, we're thinking ahead of the things that are available to us at the time.
Now,
So what was that like for you? Like, I need to know what that sounds like for real. I mean, not the fake. And what you just said as far as like it bouncing off of walls and how you were able to work that out. What was that like for you? I mean, knowing that, hey, this can happen, but how do I make it happen because the technology is not there? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
What was that like? And you're playing, and you got to keep the beat.
Yeah. It was a totally analog thing, not a digital thing. It was totally an analog thing.
Right.
Digital makes everything
both sides of your brain.
Yeah, so much better. Like I said, man, I'm over here, I'm playing drums and I'm mixing, and then I'm doing background vocals. I got a mic over here too, so I'm like kind of working all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, of course, whatever you do, you can check with people, like on your break and things like that, to kind of fine tune it and stuff. But it's almost like second guessing yourself, so you kind of hone in the sound that's in your head. You know what I mean? Because you got a sound in your, everybody has a sound in their head. You know what I mean?
Right,
I call mine the Brown sound, because it's from me. You know what I'm saying? So every time I'm working with artists or I'm coming to work with people, I'm bringing my sound. You know what I mean? And I'm applying it to whatever situation is there. Whether it's on stage, where it's in the studio, I'm going to apply the Brown sound. And I've tried it over and over and over to fine tune it, to hone it in. Which is a sound, you know what I mean? Just like I said, just from the time of me being a kid, just sitting down and listening. I had in high school, I had a music teacher that today he still checks on me. He actually, this is interesting, man. He actually uses me as an example. Okay. From he says, now this guy here, see, he went out to Los Angeles and he did this and this and this and this, but this is what you can accomplish. Okay. But he used to be, that this was his nice thing, because not only was he an accomplished music scholar, he used to be the bass player on tour with the Cream. Ginger Baker and Eric Clapton and all them and stuff like that. So he brought his amp up to the studio, up to the school. And in the, in the orchestra pit, he puts this big Ampeg with the double cabinets. Remember the big huge thing? And starts playing bass. I'm going, wow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Man, that sound was just like awesome. But he was the type of guy, because he had the hippie thing going on too, and along with being an accomplished, scholar. He would tell everybody, he says, in symphony and orchestra and things like that, he said, go to each instrument and look at it and know that sound. Hear that sound of what that instrument makes, whether it's a cello, a violin, or whatever it is, a horn, saxophone, trumpet, baritone, you know what I mean? All the stuff like that. He says, I want you to know what those instruments sound like. Okay. And see, that's what helped me into the productions and stuff in the studio and everything else, and recording engineer, because if you're recording something, you're miking something, how do you know how it sounds? You need to know in your head what that instrument actually sounds like.
And you have to get all the way into the sound. I mean, it can't be a superficial thing. I mean, you have to like literally get into that sound of that one single instrument or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then once you understand it, live, analog, like what we just talked about, because you sat right there in the, because you played an orchestra and everything too. So you're listening to everything around, harp, you're listening to everything, and stuff. And so now when you're a recording engineer, you have to figure out, how do I make that transpose to tape or to record? You know what I mean? So then the miking thing comes in, where you got to figure out, how do you really mic a piano? When you got a big grand piano and you got a big soundboard that's going on there, you got low, high, you got all these sounds. How do you mic that properly in stereo? You know what I mean? So it's like, I was always a sound person, even being a musician. And that's why every group that I worked with, I pretty much, I was kind of forced into it.
Okay. Now it's interesting because you use a lot of like in this conversation, you're talking about like a lot of the live, the live format, where you have to go set up live. What about recording? I mean, obviously they're both different. How you record live and how you record in studio is different. How are they? Obviously they're a lot different, right?
Yes and no, because if you think about the concept of a record, of somebody playing something back, whether it be a record or digital format or whatever else, you're trying to make it, if you're a recording engineer, sound person, you want to make sure that whatever is happening live, whatever that person's doing live, is transferred to this format correctly. You know what I'm saying? So that it sounds just like it. Because you can listen back to old stuff where they just put one microphone on stuff. I mean, when I trained under,
and there were how many tracks were there? What, 4?
Shoot, 4 tracks. And you know what? That was a lot of production that a guy had to think about, and as it's going to tape, because that's what you got.
When 8 tracks came out, and I'm not talking about like the car stereo, but I mean, when, you're recording with, it goes from 4, where the Beatles were, to 8 track or whatever. Can you imagine, wow, hey, we're going to 16 track. What?
Yeah. I listened to, like I said, I've had access and listened to some stuff that Sly and them did.
Oh,
that was on 4 track.
On 4 track.
Yeah, like the Stand album, Family Affair, and Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself, and things like that. And they just was working on a 4 track, a 4 track reel, and to listen. And one of the tracks was the drum machine.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And then the other one is like Freddie and Sly and Larry Graham playing. And I was like asking Freddie, when I worked with Freddie, I said, man, how are you guys doing that stuff? He said, we had the drum machine sitting there, and we all sat around the machine and we were just playing to each other.
Wow.
Just like that.
Wow.
And that's how that raw sound came at you, you know what I mean? But my whole thing on sound, like I said, is that I always took sound personally. And I didn't know it was my
concept. Wow. I mean, that's a good lesson right there. I mean, you gotta take it personally.
You gotta take it personal. And we did all this club circuit. I mean, I remember when you and Philip were talking about when you guys were working before Switch. You knew each other before Switch. And of course, I was in Michigan. With Greg and all them, and DeBarge.
And DeBarge, right? Let's
right. And we all are around doing our thing and stuff. But see, I was always doing secular music, as they call it, and gospel.
And I was just going to say, we just mentioned like those 2 names as far as Switch and DeBarge and all that. And you talk about gospel, like a few of the artists that you've worked with. Yeah, right. It's like that.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm thankful, Eddie, because I think it's because of my passion for sound. Is the reason why people observe that. You know what I mean? One of my mentors and one of the baddest gospel artists that went down in history is André Crouch. And I didn't even expect that. And when I started working with him, and I said, man, he makes this thing on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? It's like the way he was doing gospel music, and the whole industry just gravitates to him because his personality was what it was, you know, God rest his soul. He had this thing about him that all the entertainers came to him. Like you have like Quincy Jones and stuff like that. Right. So it was all these masses of great singers and musicians and stuff like that. And it's because of how he was doing what he did.
Now, how did you guys come together?
Man, it's so crazy. I was when you guys had first signed up to Motown, okay? And I moved to Pacoima, okay? And I'm there, and I was going to church at James Cleveland's church down in Los Angeles, okay? And I was at a session, and one of the guys that was there, his name was Woodrow, he said, hey, man, you keep going down that church way down there in L.A., driving way down there from the valley.
Right.
He said, why don't you go to André Crouch's church, which was right around the corner from you? I said, what? I said, you talk about André Crouch, the gospel entertainer.
Now, literally, if you're not from L.A., you know, you probably heard about like the L.A. freeway systems and all that stuff. To go from the valley to go to the city of L.A., you pretty much had like to pack a lunch, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you talk over an hour. Over an hour drive. And I was doing that. And so when I ended up finding out where it was, I said, well, let me go on over here with my wife at the time. We went over there and, you know, I looked at the choir and stuff and I said, wow, this little bitty church and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was an inky binky church, you know what I mean? And I said, André Crouch, you know, and André was out on tour, you know, he was out on tour. And so I kept going to the church, and then I guess their drummer left. Okay, their drummer had to go to the army or something like that. So I ended up being their drummer, you know. Wow. I ended up being their drummer. And so when André and Sandra got off tour, and then, you know, Sandra would come over there, and they came over to church, and they saw me playing. They said, well, who's the guy on drums? You know? And they said, well, that's Drew Brown, blah, 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 from Michigan, da, 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 da. And so they always associated me with Motown, with you guys, too.
Right.
You know, because I brought Philip and everybody over to that church to meet André. You know what I mean? So.
And I got to say, if I can just interject a thought here, just for people that don't know, Andrew was instrumental as far as like Switch back in the early days. We all hung out together and all that stuff. So Andrew is part of the family. He's part of the Switch family, just so they can know what the relationship is between Switch and you. And again, let's talk about, and we need to talk about DeBarge too, because there's a relationship there as well. Like, again, Andrew's worked with them all. He's worked with them all.
Yeah. Well, André, that's how I met André. And I worked with André for close to 30 years. I first worked with him. I was drumming with, when I first got with them, the Disciples, which was the original group, had just disbanded in like 80. I think it was like 79 or 80. So Sandra had started a group. I started playing drums with her. But I actually ran André's studio, and then we started doing stuff together. You know, André, we went out and did tours and stuff like that and everything too. So that's how I actually, you know, met André. But I mean, you know, I've worked with Gladys and the DeBarges. My goodness, I did some stuff for Dionne Warwick and I did compilation stuff albums, you know, of course, Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield. I mean, I had the old school thing that was down. And like I was saying, Eddie, I think it was because of the passion, because when I would work with people, they would see that, you know, because I learned when I worked with Barney Perkins, you know Barney.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, you know, I studied underneath Barney and Calvin Harris is the other guy. Those were the original Motown engineers.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And those guys were the ones that was teaching me the tricks of the trade. You know, they were the first guys to mic a bass drum, and stuff like that across the country. You know, remember Martha Reeves or what was it? Baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? Boom, 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 boom. You know, and Barney said they was calling and asking, saying, man, how are you getting that sound? All the engineers from around calling, you know, because they were, at that time, they were just putting one mic over the top of the drum set.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So he ended up hooking that up like that. But Barney and them and all that stuff, and Calvin and all them, it was interesting, especially Calvin. He said, you know, what we do, it goes down in history books.
Boy.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
You know, there's no takebacks. Okay? When you release a record, you can't take that back.
It's gone. It's
out there. So he said, think about your work, the work that you do to present that sound onto that disc.
Right.
You know, you have to be passionate about that because that's your work.
Right.
You know, just like somebody does artists, you know, artist paints a picture or does something like that. So that's where I was really into that zone, even though I already had the passion for it, you know, back in Michigan when I was young, you know, working with a lot of people, you know, and you know, I was telling somebody about when Aretha Franklin passed. And I said, well, you know, I used to play for the youth choir for a dance church in there. And I was real young. You know, we were coming from Grand Rapids over there and working with the choir.
Right.
But it was, I think the passion that you have for what you do is where people respect that and they'll keep you in the link. You know, because they were like saying, well, how'd you work with all these people? And a lot of times people don't remember my name. They remember my face. You know what I mean? When I walk in somewhere, you know, I was looking at a thing on Shantae Moore the other day, you know.
As a presence, that's
yeah. They said, I know you. And emotions and stuff. It's like, where did I see you before? You know? You look like George Duke or somebody. They'll say some stuff like that, but then they'll say, oh, yeah, that's right. You was recording a session. So I'm thankful for those connections, you know what I mean? And I've always just tried to be humble about it, you know? You know what I'm saying? How some people blow their...
And obviously you're still as passionate about it now as you were then. And you can tell, like, just look at the setup. This set, incredible. So
I always had a room around me. Always had sound around me. Always. You know what I mean? And it's like that's the love. That's the love of it. You know what I mean? So
are you still keeping busy now? I mean, are you still keeping busy recording?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the you know, pandemic situation that we got here, I have to pick and choose really a lot. I do more online stuff with people. That's kind of slows people, you know, the economy is hit.
Now, how are you finding that? I mean, to do like the online, you know, thing as far as recording and all that stuff. I admit I'm kind of like, you know, I guess slow is the best word, you know, because I'm used to having, like all of us, we're used to having everybody in the round and feeling off each other and all that. So as an engineer, how is that working for you?
It's a struggle because what it is you have to use your main tool, which is online. Okay. Because website usage online, I've really beefed up my website and doing it even more so, so it attracts people to it. You know what I mean? Because and I think that's where we're going anyway. You know
before I forget, give that website address too, because I don't want to go off.
Yeah, my website address is www.brownsoundent.com.
Okay. Brown Sound Entertainment. Brown Sound.
Yeah, Brown Sound Entertainment.
Got it. Okay.
And you know, go to it and look around on it. It's even more. It's getting beefed up even more. I'm looking at more and more people that are doing things online. They're you know, like even sending your tracks in and doing stuff like that, because look at how our pandemic has kept us away from connecting.
It's changed everything. It's changed everything. And whatever normal is, I mean, we're not getting back to what used to be normal, you know? So, I mean, even, I think even when everything is like right, you know, it's not going to be the way it was, you know? So, and I think technology is going to be play a big part in that, you know? So, No, I was just as far as what you're doing now, and like you said, as far as how uh, the music business is going to play in that. What is it, what do you how do you feel about how technology is going to play in this normal, I guess?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what we're seeing is kind of, it's got its pros and cons. Okay, because you see what's happening, but you and I've worked around record companies for a long time.
A lot
okay,
of them. Yep.
And because I was a independent contractor, with all MCA, Warner Brothers, all these different ones and stuff, with all those projects I did with people. Right. So I was seeing the woes and the the good things and the bad things. I was looking at the stuff that was happening to artists and things like that, and even when I had to fight for credits and even my money. It's like chasing your dollars down is crazy. And but
another one of the bumps and scratches you get on the playground.
That's anyway, my playground. People come to play.
Yes, sir. Yes,
but I see right now, because of what's going on with the internet, with those companies, those big companies, they have to fall in line now, because people like Spotify and all those different ones like that, and like I said, Joe Rogan's situation, where he just signed with Spotify, and I think we're going to see our record companies are going to change names. They're going to be Apple, and they're going to be Spotify and all those, you know what I'm saying? What's the other one? Pandora and all stuff like that. Those are going to be your record companies.
The record companies. Wow. That's an interesting thought, because I didn't think about that. I was always wondering now what's going to happen to like the record companies of old, like the Columbias and the RCAs and all that stuff. I mean, I don't even, are they even still around anymore? Are they even a thing anymore? Or
they're around, but they're very minimal.
They're not what they used to be.
No, they're not.
And because of technology, I mean, they don't nearly wield the power that they used to.
Because think about it. Now that what we're able to do with technology from your own place, okay, you can make your deal directly with Spotify or what. Right. That's what I'm saying about what Joe Rogan just did, signing what was $100 million deal.
Some
comes up next
right.
year, and it's like he bypassed all of it. He's the new Howard Stern. When you think about Joe, and it's like that. They were like talking about it, saying, well, how is that affecting music business? Okay, but there's like, well, look at it, because if you have an artist and you got your project done, make your deal straight with those guys. Why go through another source that's going to take all your money away again? And you know what I'm saying?
And even the way you got to get to that other source back in the day was like, okay, I want to get there. Well, you got to start here first, and then go there, and then go over there, and then and at the end of the day, it's like, I'm too tired now.
I watch Unsung a lot. I do. I watch Unsung a lot. It's interesting because Unsung tells you a lot of the stories about the people in the industry, how they got treated and what happened to them, and all type of things like that. And when you look at that and you see that was then, because now we're in new technology where you can do stuff at your house, and whoever you're working with, and it's production wise enough to be put out there on the air. And in the air, I'm talking about the internet, because radio's going away.
Right.
It's like it's a new day, man.
And speaking of radio, like you said, that's going away. And I guess kind of speaking of radio and not speaking of radio, and with all the formats that are available now, as far as artists, like new artists, are there any like new artists that you're looking at or that are interesting to you now? Or, like, who would you like to record? Who would you like to get in the room and record?
Wow. There's quite a few of them that are out there. There was a young man that because I am still with the Grammy voting. So I vote every year.
Same here.
Yeah. So I have the access. You know how you have access to listen to all the new artists.
Yes. Right.
And you listen to the whole thing.
Right.
This was about maybe, it was a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to this guy's stuff. And I said, dude, that dude sounds old school, but he's a young dude and he's the man. I love what he's doing. You know, I said, man, I'm voting for him, blah, 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 blah. And I'm talking to the young people about it. They said, well, you know, he passed. I said, what? I'm talking about Mac Miller. Okay? Mac Miller. Okay? Unbelievable. You know what I mean? But you got so many artists. Her is good. You know what I'm saying? And of course, the internet.
Right.
You know, with Sid, you know, stuff like that. And I mean, there's so many young artists that you know, we thought for a minute there that it was, remember we went through the gangster rap in the 90s.
Right.
We was going, whoa, you know, and I was working with a lot of people at that time too. And, you know, I mean, I was around DJ Quick and all them and you know, all these different artists. But it was interesting that now where it's shifted, you know, you got a lot of young people that know music. You know what I'm saying? When you listen to them, you go, wait a minute. They playing guitar and keys and they doing, you know, they're doing really nice things, you know? So music, as resourceful as it always has been, you know what I'm saying? Right. That it always comes back around that corner. You know, where technology tries to say, we're going to take it this way. Because you remember, we came through the disco era. Right. See, that's where a lot of us as drummers got put out of business. Okay? You know, wait a minute, Daddy. Right. When they came through with that drum machine, and they hit the play on it, and they said that thing was slamming. They said they can play all day and all night. Right. No break. Don't need a water break or go to the bathroom. And play all. I said, "Oh my God, we are in trouble."
I remember a drummer, as a matter of fact, at the beginning of that. This is like when MIDI and the drum machines was like, you know, it was like really huge and all that stuff. And I'm not going to mention his name now because I don't want to get the quote wrong. But the principle is there. He was talking about how much money that he had made, and I mean, this is a big guy, you know, a big name guy and all that. Throughout the 80s and 90s, he was pretty much on everybody's record, you know, and he was talking about like what it did to his income. He went from, you know, making like, you know, I don't know, let's just say, you know, like $1 million to like 250,000. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't really feel sorry for you.
You know, yeah, you're still out of my category. What are you doing? What are you talking about?
I feel for you, but I'm sorry, I don't. So it's interesting what you said as far as like how that put people out of business. But some people, most people, as a matter of fact, or you know, either way, I mean, people. What am I trying to say? They became at one with it. They found a way to work with it. You know, what is it? What's the old saying? If you can't beat them, join them. And right now, you see like a lot of the youngsters, a lot of the musicians that are coming up now, they're like in all facets of their artistry. I mean, it's not just the music. I mean, you know, with videos out, you can see they're in the production of the video. They're making sure they get their money, you know, and all that stuff. But a lot of that wasn't available to us, and they had departments that took care of this and that and the other. But now artists are like, no, I don't want to do that, you know. And I guess Prince was probably the pioneer as far as that. Prince was like, you know, there on every facet, you know. And I remember thinking, man, how do you have time to learn all that, you know?
Yeah, and that's, you know, because that was the thing, you know, like what kept me in business or kept me active and in the forefront there was that when that situation happened to me as being a drummer, as a live drummer, okay? When I saw the drum machine come in, I said, you know what? Let me learn that box, okay? So I can stay in the mix. And I did the same thing for engineering, you know, because I came through tape machines, you know, the 2-inch reels and stuff like I came through all that. I had my razor blade. I could come in and cut right on the beat and do what I needed to do.
Razor blade.
Yeah, that was how you was hired. How good you could cut.
How good you could splice. Yep.
y'all can splice. You know what I mean? But when I saw where the industry was going in technology, digitally, I said, well, let me start learning that. That's why, like, I mean, the first digital sequencing program that I learned was in '84 or something like that. And it was Cakewalk, okay?
Yes.
It was Cakewalk. Yes. But before that, Roland had a little box. It was cream-colored box, and it was a sequencer. It had MIDI thing, cables came out of it. I forgot it was called C something, CP or something. C something. It had a certain name on it, but I learned those things like that, and it was interesting when in Hollywood, when I went back out to Hollywood, and here were these guys that were talking about, yeah, well, I'm still dealing with tape, man. Forget all that digital stuff. This is, you know, the tried and true. And I'm like going, wow, dude, you getting ready to get left in the dirt. Yeah.
And I got to admit, mine wasn't on that schedule, but I remember when CDs and all that stuff, and I remember when we were first told about CDs. You know, there's this new medium that's going to be coming out, and it's going to replace records, you know, and they use the word vinyl, but for us, it was records. There's this thing called CDs that are coming out. It's going to replace like those records and all that stuff. Now, you know, my record collection was like massive. You know, I kept like a record collection. And I got to say, and I kind of joked about it back then, I think I was the last person on earth to actually go buy a CD, let alone the player itself, you know, because I refused to give into it. I refused to give into it until they're like, okay, you know what? You know, you can't buy any more records here unless you get them used, you know. So,
and now look, though, they're going back to vinyl.
Right,
Ain't that something? They're going right back on vinyl. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, because, you know, just like you said, you know, there's always a trade-off in technology. There's always a trade-off. And musically, when we start looking at things digitally, you know, they're taking certain things away to give you the ease of that technology. Right. You know, but music is what it is. Music is sound. There's sound within sound. There's algorithms. There's all type of stuff that's going on when you hear something live. Like I told somebody sometime, I said, how would you mic a Leslie speaker? Okay. You know, and they said, well, you know, do it like this, you know, and I, you know, because I would train some guys and stuff, and you know, and I said, tell me how you'd mic it, you know, because what you're doing is you've got something mechanical that's rolling around in a circle, and you're trying to capture that air. You're trying to capture air. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So
with a fixed medium, with a mic.
With a fixed medium. Right there. That's right. That's right. So that's that's why, you know, stereo has always, it came back to that. I remember when we went into quadraphonic and all this stuff and all these different things like that. Now, you know, we're in 5.1, you know, 6.1, 7.1, 10.1, whatever it is. You keep adding speakers and stuff, but basically, bottom line, you know, you keep adding them. But think about it, you only got 2 ears. Okay? You only have 2 ears. That's why stereo has always worked well, because you get this thing like this. You know what I mean? And if you think like that, you can create a live thing on record. You see what I mean? Because you got two different reference points to deal with, you know? So that's what it's, okay. So that's how you would do an organ. Yeah. Yeah, Leslie. Same thing with a piano. You know what I mean? You know, a piano, when you, you know, you lift up the top, how are you going to mic it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. You see how you playing that right here.
I was going to say, turn me on.
Look at you, look at you. That's Edward. That's Edward. See, that's Eddie.
I love it. I love it.
Come on out there. Yeah. But I love like what you're playing there now. What is that? What instrument is that? Is that a regular?
Piano. That's not a regular. Yeah. Well, it's through what is that? Keyscape. It's software.
So, okay, that's what I'm talking about right there. Okay. Back in the 80s, we couldn't get a good sample piano. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
The technology wouldn't give us a great sound in piano. You know what I mean?
How many mics would have to go inside to get like a pretty decent sound? Right.
Yeah, man. And see, I would go with 3 on a grand piano. You know what I mean? Because I could get the stereo cross on it, but then you still got to mic that low end.
Which personally, to me, no matter what, you can come out with all the technology that you want. There's nothing like the real thing, you know. And I'd much rather have an acoustic, a grand piano, any day of the week.
Yeah,
yeah.
So we're actually playing catch up because, see, just like I was saying, is we're trying to take our technology, we're trying to take the real thing, you know, authentic thing, and make it synthetic. And so we're trying to get our A to D converters to catch up. But that's why, like, you play that piano, somebody listens to it, sounds just like a regular piano. You see what I'm saying? What you just did sounds like a regular piano. It didn't used to be like that because it was the A to D converters couldn't keep up. So same thing with drums. You know what I mean? We got, you know.
There it is.
You know, you got the Len, you know, you got all that type of stuff. You got, you know, you got drum machines and stuff.
And people can tell just by looking at you, that's a drum machine, not real drums. You know? So, I mean, you're just reaching down there, as opposed to, you know, all over the place.
And we did wonders with sampling. Okay. Now when the thing came in and people would say, you know, blah, 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 I said, well, think about what the word says. Okay. It says sample. Okay. Just like when you go and sample some food or something like that, you're taking a picture of the real thing.
Good point.
See what I'm saying? It's not the real thing, but you're taking a picture of it. It's pretty close to it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing that we work with the sampling tip, and we're doing good with it now. I remember when we had samplers all over the place. I keep a couple in here just for grins and giggles.
You know, and these days people are coming back to it, you know, because no matter what the technology does, there's always something about like the old stuff that people need, you know, because I'm still seeing like people that are still using like synthesizers and all that stuff where they're still plugging things in and all that stuff, you know, and I'm like, you know what, hey, you know, people still need it.
It's whatever works, Eddie. It's like whatever works. And like I said, that I just dance with the technology. I'm not afraid of change. You know what I mean? I just embrace it because I figure, you know, in this life, that's something we can count on. One of the things we can count on is change.
Exactly.
So you need to embrace it because it's coming. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna get away from
because it's coming.
It's coming. So why not embrace it?
Good point. Yes.
Let's just work with it, you know, and in this music, you know, thing, you know, technology has just run amok. It came up and I look at it like, great. Let me see what the new thing is. You know what I mean? I'm not putting it down. Just like with the young people, where we were sent to formal training, we were in high school and doing things like that. They were taking music out of the school systems. So if a creative person still has the creative thing in them, they got electronics. They play it like an instrument.
Good point.
Like I've seen young guys that do a drum machine. I can't do a drum machine like that. They flip that thing over and throw it up in the air and it comes down. I'm like, wow, dude, that is like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I've seen a lot of great technology, and so I try to stay. Like the old people used to say, keep your ear to the street. You know, keep it there, so you always stay current.
Okay. Couple questions, 2 more questions, and then we're gonna have to close. But one question, as far as like engineering or whatever. Now these are names that don't come up like a normal conversation because it's always like the artist. But when you were coming up, did you have like examples of engineers that you would like listen to? Like, you know, hey, I like what he did. I like that engineer. Did you have any by name that you would listen to? Like the artist is the artist or whatever, but you know the sound of this guy. Who were can you name like a couple of those?
Well, you know, the two, and it's interesting, is the ones that I always looked at on the albums and I always liked. I ended up studying with them, which was Barney Perkins, Calvin Harris, Bruce Sweeteen. They did all Michael's stuff.
Right. Yeah, he's one of my heroes.
Yeah, man. I mean, there was always people, because, you know, when we used to have liner credits, remember they started taking that stuff away when they took albums.
And I would tell everybody, I mean, even back then when we were coming up, those liner credits made careers. You know, they were just as important as what was on the inside of the packet, you know. So, and, you know, we'd be sitting there reading like a book. Oh, look, who played horn, who played drums, who engineered and all that stuff. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
And Burbage, Craig Burbage. And man, I mean, there was cats that it was so funny when I started working around Hollywood a lot on that end, not just drumming, because I came out the drumming thing, I got shifted over in this other thing in productions. And so now all the heroes that I used to look at, you know, I'm like in the studio with them and stuff.
Wow.
Like when I did the stuff on the Dangerous album with Michael, you know, he loved Andre's stuff. Andre did Man in the Mirror and all the stuff like that and stuff with Quincy. And so we were tracking the stuff at Andre's studio, you know, like demo and putting it on the reels, and then take the reels down to Bruce Sweeting. Okay. So, I mean, man, all those vocals and stuff, you know, and things like that. And so I'd be asking Bruce and them and everything, because I come in humble with all those cats. I say, hey, man, how'd you like it? Did I do okay? You know what I'm saying? Because give me some pointers. You know what I mean? And let me know that oh yeah, Drew, it's all good. You sounded good, man. Good.
Got you.
You know?
Got you. Good.
So,
good. So and these days with again, we're talking like the new technology and this and that and the other. What advice would you offer like the people that are coming up in the business, whether it be on drums, whether it be as a musician or as an engineer such as yourself?
Always stay open to the new technology. Because we're moving into another realm here. Internet's taking over, okay? But I think that we're also going to another phase. Who knows? They might be hooking things to your head now, and so you just think a song in. You just think of how to mix something, or you know what I'm saying, like that. But always stay open, because it's always moving. You know, we think, you know, we knew it all. You know what I'm saying? We think we knew it all, but look at us now.
And it's interesting the points you made earlier as far as change. You know, because and I like that it's coming. It's gonna come. It's constantly coming. You know, so be open to change.
You are not going to get away with any of that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? To me, it's like, no, you can forget that.
Right. Well, listen, Drew, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was an honor. And again, my brother there. Thank you for doing this for me. You know, thanks for coming to the playground and playing with us here.
Want to do some more playing.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. We'll do this again. I look forward to it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Brown of Brown Sound Entertainment. You can find him at brownsoundent.com. And that ENT stands for entertainment. My brother, Andrew, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll see you next time.